Okay, so now we're live. We are on the same page. We're on the same page.
Okay.
Bestpractices.glitch.me. I can put it in
Awesome.
chat.
Yeah, I
And
see
I
it.
hope it's working fine. Jorge has accidentally closed his streaming, so now it's only on my side. Hello.
Hey guys, hi Joana, nice to see
Hi
you.
there.
We're already live and it's recording, I think. Yes.
So
So
I screw my streaming by the way.
we
So
just
now we just
started.
have now it's streaming on the website because when we finish, I just like because we are at the end we just like close things, like you're with energy. So I just close everything and then I thought, wow, it's not control Q. I should not do control Q. Everything was gone. So,
No,
Quit everything.
but if you just close the tab, you can still. Wait.
no, because
Anyways,
I closed everything, so the streaming was out.
okay, we can
The
talk about it
computer.
later.
All
Did
right.
you do something, Joanna?
A little bit, yes. How do you say when you go forward a little bit? So I would watch some snippets, and I did looked into a moment where we were talking about how not to be seen, which I think it was referencing Hitler style.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's nice to yeah, I didn't have the time to go through it all, but it was nice that there were some moments that it felt very um provocative. Yeah.
This is very nice because I mean, by the way, this is the first time that we are sharing this space with somebody else.
Publicly, yeah.
So publicly, the so this is so exciting that you are joining us. This is so super nice.
Yeah, actually, we should give like introduction or something, or we just do it like this. I don't know. I don't know who's
This is
watching.
the introduction somehow. Like I mean, this is yeah. I don't know. Like, do you want to say something? It seems like you want to say something. This is very funny because this is yeah, it's impossible not to do, and this is something that I'm getting more conscious that once I know somebody seeing, let's say the streaming puts so much pressure on me because I cannot avoid like the function. I cannot avoid try to make it good. I cannot avoid try to make people like what I said. Like if I'm alone or if I'm more in a private environment, I will care less. So in a way, then I will be more close to what I think is the best practices thing.
Mhm.
You're becoming like a
So
TV
I'm
personality.
saying that I was saying that in relation to like what is what we're supposed to do, like this is the chat. Like now we invite one more person, but is it that we're supposed to do a formal introduction? Is it good or wrong? Like is it that we're supposed to do something with this?
Did you ever introduce yourselves when you were doing the best practices?
That's what I was thinking. We never did it. So
No,
maybe
So no one really knows who you are.
but slowly, I think what we do is in the chat, slowly we have this reflexive thing sometimes that to speak somewhere in the past or in the future is the way how I see it. And sometimes then I speaking or to Naoto in the past or the future, or to myself in the past or the future because of the archiving. Uh, and that's yeah. But then there is a reflective way to speak to not only to Naoto, let's say when we do just normally the chat, but then to try to introduce things. If we use some text, try to give the reference to the text. um, but this is a bit because if we call something like backstage in a way when we just start speaking, I mean, and we're recording everything apparently. Everything, I think we have a lot of material, but then we upload just like the frameworks of the best practices and the chats, but we're recording every time that now tell me we met online, we are recording this. So very often happens like, is this gonna be uploaded, the question,
Mhm.
this is
maybe,
kind of the
well, yeah,
question.
unless it's live stream. So that's the difficult thing with the live streaming. You cannot avoid it. It's gonna be online.
Hmm.
Mhm. It's already in the network.
Yeah. So
I love.
like I maybe we should ask something to Joanna because she's there, and but I don't know what to ask. Yeah, like I was thinking, like because what Jorge said, like I was about to ask, why we're doing this together, but maybe that's like an introduction. I don't know.
Mhm. Well, maybe I think one thing we can certainly talk about is how our paths intersected. So I guess it all comes down to you now, Tom.
Yeah, have to put the pointers like this.
Yeah, it's pointing
Yeah,
at you. Yes.
that's there for the reason.
Um, yeah. Well, actually, one thing that I'm curious is when you're coming together, like you seem to still be using a lot of Hydra, of the live coding platform, and but what you do something, the presence of the camera and multiple viewpoints of the camera, it's also growing in your best practices. Uh, so I'm actually quite curious about how much do you think about these tools? How much I know that from other conversations we had that the point is that you don't have much of an agenda, but at the same time you do have a sort of setup. So I'm quite curious to learn more about that. So now, now I'm the one who asks the question.
It's good. Because also like one of the ideas we had for this chat is to do Q&O, not Q&A, but questions and options. So we just leave questions.
Okay.
And I think it's really good point you said, because to be honest, today I was quite annoyed with all these windows from Jorge. Like you had like 8 or 9 different windows on Live Lab, and I just had one on the corner, and most of them are from Jorge. And I mean, not annoyed, but I found it funny.
Mm.
And there are like some ghosts that are not used anymore, so it's like blank, but it just stays there. But it's like, why not?
I quite like how, thinking about interface, the notion of interfacing, it all comes down to squares, which I think it's one of the things that have been mostly discussed in the past year because of so much of, the interactions coming to these sort of streams where you're sort of, would have to fit in this sort of frame. But then I quite like the fact that you leave also the ones that are somehow ghostly, or that you also embrace the absence or the, yeah, I think that's less usual, that's less embraced, I believe.
The way how I see it is that, like, because I think Naoto and myself, we have different workflows. Like that was from the beginning. So like if I will, like for instance, today what we use in a way is, now Naoto will use some Hydra or some other platforms that he's using, depending. I don't know what he's using all the time. But then I will be using BDMX, that it has all these small windows. I think from the beginning we were like, I was using, and we still we do it, but not every time because we change. But like the way how we did it today, in a way, is very similar to how we started. That is like I use BDMX because I'm more comfortable with that. Then I will glitch through the BJ interface, and then. But like, for instance, today in my experience, I was trying to do many. So I was trying to use Hydra and BDMX at the same time, and so it was way too much, because then sometimes then I get lost in, am I using the switcher or am I using the windows in my BJ software? How is the pipeline? Which one is the one that I'm using? So um, but I think that the the workflow, like today for instance, like I was using as well like 3 different cameras that I try sometimes, or like 3, 4, and but not, yeah, I think it was long time ago since I was trying that. So I think I was trying to do many of these brilliant ideas that I thought, oh, this will be spectacular. uh, and then I have to deal also then with I cannot avoid comparing what like with the image that Naoto is making, and that's something that I could reflect today, because then I will compare myself, and
To
but
judge
not
in a way.
in the sense like then I will compare the image that I'm doing, but that not only the image, because it's a reflection of me, like then I have to, in a way, to accept my desires and my limitations also. Uh, so, but I was sharing that is because today I have the space, and at some point in the streaming, I was using the text when I see it's not working. I have just 10 minutes, and then I just realized that actually I have the time to just start writing the things around the idea of this that I'm expressing, and that released space for me. So then I was not feeling any more bad in a way, but then I just felt like, oh, okay, it was like a meditative space, uh, but that was specifically today.
Yeah, like for me also, like from my point of view, like I really felt this, not like tension, but I know that you had a lot of things in your mind, and then but at the end it was nice, like you started writing and we kind of started to, like, I don't know what it is, like breathing or whatever, like we were just like, with a voice we were like just moving, and that was, I think, a nice way of kind of letting it go. um and yeah, for the text, I just wanted to ask you, Joanna, like because I think one of the, like, I would say, like, reference in terms of like the live code or any kind of performance with text, then like you are one of the, you know I don't know what's the right word, master of using text in the performance. And
Oh.
like we're still like more like how I say, like ad hoc, like we just open the text editor or like Google Docs and start writing things. But yeah, I just wanted to know. I don't know what's the right question, but maybe you can expand on it.
Hmm. Yeah, but it's crazy how actually when I was going through the video from the recordings before, I I stopped in the moments you were writing. I was so curious about that. So yeah, I do think that whether it's appealing or not, because I also think that I make a lot of my audiences. I ask a lot from them in terms of focus, because I think there's a level of immersiveness with the voice and and the presence of the body. But then when it comes to text, and especially when it's so heavy on text, which is oftentimes what I do, then yeah, I think it asks a lot from from everyone else in the room. Um, but yeah, I think it's also, I also don't mind the fact that sometimes people fade away from the text, and then when they come back, they will encounter a specific word that they will connect with or they stay with. So I'm also not expecting, when it comes to text-based performances, or if that becomes also a bit more of a prominent element, I'm not expecting everyone to always pay attention to that. But I think it's quite beautiful when at least I hear in the audience someone repeating a word that somehow connected with them, or if relationally, if a piece of text then, because it's together with another one, also forms some sort of connection. So I think that's more what I find it interesting. And yeah, and also because maybe maybe it's also a way to stretch a little bit what we understand as technical languages and also what we understand as natural languages. A lot of things that we spoke about, like where we come from, where do we go, how we become people with almost no languages because of how much of them we sort of incorporate throughout time, and how you sort of feel like you start questioning yourself in relation to what's your native language after connect or embedding yourself in so many of them. So yeah, I think there's many questions to do with text language and having that as a within a performance, and as an action, as as something that happens live and with others.
Actually, there was like one like funny moment when one of the like first live streams we did, someone actually wrote in the chat what was it again? Like, Jorge, do you remember? Like, I would, oh yeah, I would love if you can tell me like how to use Hydra with P5JS or something like that. Like it was like kind of like really like a just like a question if I can explain that. Of course I didn't, but I just liked that text, so I used it in the performance. I mean the practice, which was kind of funny. Also like because Jorge was saying the word love, and that text also had love. Like if you, I would love if you could explain this. So that was kind of interesting, and I think that's the only participatory moment we had.
Yeah, the way how I go with text normally, as like I did today, is something will happen, and then so this the text literally was saying something about like my frustration. I literally will come there, and then I let it pass, and then slowly I will do a similar process when we were writing together. Then I will just start taking words away. So when it was something literal, becomes something different. But then I'm not searching for that. Just at the end, it was something about a lake, but it was not in Spanish. It was a word. Everything that I wrote was like 4 lines in English, but at the end was words in Spanish, kind of that it was speaking about the lake. And that's the way normally how I will jump. I do often this process when we are with Naoto with the text. Uh, that's my going through text in the practice.
Mhm. And another aspect that I also find it interesting, and that I don't think I explore that as much as other performers I know, is also the sound that comes from language. And I think I play more with the silences and with the breathing, but it's also quite interesting sometimes to, if you work with people who explore more the voice, how that also becomes a rhythm of its own. I think in my case, I would say that that's more present in the shape of typography because maybe of my graphic design background. I like zooming into certain words and somehow connect with more of the sensual part of it, where you just let yourself go through the shapes, the curves, some things that may not mean anything, but somehow they also bring a lot to your side, and there's so much already in your visual history that makes you connect with those shapes and everything they carry. But yeah, I actually you also don't, no, you sometimes do play music, but that comes from sort of spontaneous things, right?
Oh, you're muted.
I think now also is in a way today. This is today. I felt also I have the space today to think like that in a way I felt responsible for putting music because I don't remember the first time that now is putting one song. So at some point, I guess it's kind of like I guess it's more me screaming, like I need to put some music. I guess it's inside of myself because I remember at the beginning now I was very careful with the copyrights and stuff like that, and then
Ah,
through the practice, then we in a way we find a way how to make sure then not to get the copyrights, uh, then in a way we make it work, but then today because I have the reflection to actually I have the space to I don't want to have the I felt like I don't want to have the responsibility to put it, so at some point I just put it, uh, like the beginning I put something like a Melrose Place because it was in my head, so like this thing from Melrose Place from the 90s, and it was while I was putting just the chroma key in the background, and it was like a song of 10 minutes, but then after then when and that was before we started practicing a way, or I mean I was not really with the computer, started like coding and started doing nothing, so it was more just my background sound, but then after when I was in the mood and then I thought like, okay, maybe this is a bit too quiet, we should go dancing because the music will easily introduce or induce the dancing. Then I thought like, no, I will not do it because I feel like with responsibility.
Yeah, yeah, I see. Um, Yeah, to be honest, like I was experimenting a bit with like distorting sound. So it was in my list today to like open another computer and play the music, but like distort it so that maybe it can bypass the copyright. But then in the end, I didn't do it because I think I was just too into what I was doing, and it's also okay if I don't do it. Maybe next time I do it. That's kind of the how we see it, how I see it at least. And I think it's good that you mentioned, Jorge, that this responsibility thing, because yeah, like this was not like my intention, but also I know that this kind of, it's yeah, yeah. I think what you said is it makes sense, and I was
No,
also
no,
feeling that.
don't, but don't take this wrong also. But don't take me wrong also, because I think but I have this relationship with everything. I guess I have always this love-hate relationship with different things. That's part of how I identify myself and I navigate through the world. So it's like I think that is so not valid. This that I'm saying is just because at the same time that I'm saying, because what I'm saying is in the practice I don't want to deal with these judgments, because that's not the space I understand the practice and the space where I'm trying not to be Jorge in a way. I'm trying to bypass my consciousness through sometimes, right? So have the judgment to say like being responsible. Yeah? That's part of my consciousness. So this is as valid as is not valid for the practice. But in the chat is the space where we do this thing, this exercise. So
Confession.
the confession, yeah, kind of like a confession. Yeah, kind of.
Also, like we sometimes say that it's like the moment when you sit in a circle in a like a dance workshop and talk about what was the experience.
Oh yeah, those back in those good days.
Exactly.
I feel that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also, so how has it been for you to feel the body or to relate with the body in relation to the camera and in relation to the rhythms that are established through all the other activities that you do, like coding or the visual part of things or the writing? Has there been anything you've been discovering that is particularly new or revealing? um, I can also imagine that the answer can be less straightforward, but I'm just curious to hear what you've been feeling about that in relation to the body.
Who's gonna
You want to go first?
go?
You want to go
Okay. Um, I thought that that's natural, so I wanted to break that, but it's okay. I can say something. Like I know the question was like more about the development through the year because we've been doing for a year. Um, but today, like it was like what I was doing. I don't know if you saw it, but I put like a cursor and then I tried to move like a cursor on top of the desktop, and then it really felt. I mean, that's like really like a relation with relation to the viewpoint, the camera, and I have to be really conscious about it. And I think that happens quite a lot in the practice because it's not that we want to make it like nice in the frame, but we are actually working with the square. And you said like something about square frame, but it's kind of funny because we kind of I think we kind of like it. Also, like Live Lab interface is really square, but it's but it's like I think because we use like BDMX and Hydra,
first?
and it becomes
Yeah, so
something else.
yeah, BDMX is so no friendly with the because the last time I think I opened BDMX could be 1 month ago when I was in PUF. So I forgot completely that BDMX doesn't really like BDMX for BJing. So it's just a standard is 910. So then you have to do three things to the interface to find the place to just to make it right in a way. So then yeah, it was and Live Lab put this depend of how many windows are the things are getting in certain. It's more It's more than rectangular, it's more square than rectangular, literally. And that's okay if I don't work with VDMX. I was thinking that just like as a complaint with that. But the way how I think with the cameras, because I think with the cameras, I guess I will say that I will have insist more in that than Naoto. I think like literally putting more cameras, like having OBS Ninja today. A big part of like the first part is like trying to make the OBS Ninja. So like my phone work as the, and because I did it in some time, it take me a while, and then I have to deal with the frustration that I know this thing, why I forget this thing, and this whole experience. But then the way how I experience the cameras are in the construction of the, yeah, the way how the body will appear or how they will configure itself in live lab directly, because it has, if I have different cameras like today, when we were in the development at some point at the beginning, I was using two different cameras. So one, it was taking my feet and the other one was taking my upper body, and it was just by chance, it was exactly mapping my body, and we both were like, whoa, what was it? And it was just exactly mapping, but it was because there were just four windows at that moment. If at, somebody will put another window in live lab, then the squares will be rearranged and the grouping of my body will be not the same.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I try few times, but then because that just adds many things in my setup and my just my the elements that I'm using, then sometimes I'm consciously trying to say, okay, no, just I use just one webcam in order to try to simplify my doing. But very often happens that I have a lot of things around.
Let me just like change the topic completely. Like, what if we do the practice together, like three of us? Like, I don't know. We can try at some point, but like, how would we do it?
You mean like you want to try to speak about that, how to make it? That's what you're asking?
Like how? Like not in terms of schedule. That's not kind of how, but
No, no, no. Yes,
yeah, but like a format or like. I mean, we don't have to decide for the format, but we have to have some kind of protocol, right? Like we meet at 7 p.m. and do it until 8 p.m., or is it like, because that was the kind of the only protocol we had. We meet on live lab, we decide, the starting time, and to just do it for 1 hour. Well, today it was 2 hours, but that's basically it. And we didn't never said we're going to use Hydra or VDMX, but it just like naturally appeared. And if it's like three of us, like would we do it the same, or should we do something differently?
what do you think, Joanna? Yeah, I think
Good
I
question.
think I have an answer. I think I have an answer, but I would like to hear what do you think?
Um, yeah, I'm not. I don't know how it would. Yeah. I think on one hand, one needs time to, to fill the space and to get into a specific mode. So I think 1 hour feels like what you need for things to yeah to find its own to find their own way. But at the same time, I'd be quite curious. A while ago, we discussed what it would mean to also do things asynchronously and leave something for someone else, and a bit like these ghost sort of presences. And that got me really curious. So, yeah, it's a bit like arriving at a stage where there's some props and some things around, and then you know that something happened before you. You just see the traces, and you sort of imagine how you connect with that, and either continuity or discontinuity. You're not even quite sure what how that happens. But yeah, that was one thing we've discussed a while ago that got me very curious.
Mm, yeah.
And what is your option?
No, what I thought like will be just live lab, because then live lab, and it doesn't matter the time. I will need 5 hours normally because of my setup is very demanding, but Um, but no, yeah, because I have a personal, because I, how to say this, because I'm partly in and out of these things. How, wait, I'm gonna try to organize what I'm trying to say. Is that, yes, like, I think the process, like the how Joanna suggests, like it's something very interesting to work, like as in a way, like traces, like working with something that you do or did someone do in time, meaning that you don't have to be there present, but then let's say it's a video, or let's say it's something that other ones can use. um, then is then it has to be then it has to be then it's something else, then it's not like this thing that I have in my head of best practices, because it's not symmetrical. Like if your presence is not there, it's already limiting in the framework. How I understand the practice is uh is something else, that that is not something that I will, how I understand the practice right now. But that's how I think. So that definitely, I'm not saying there's not, it will be super interesting, and then working more. If you think choreographically, actually, that it makes more sense that the way how you work and you create choreographies, then because that will define actually part of the elements. So say that we have to work with some traces that you have left for us, then we have to make sense of that, and it will frame things in certain way. That I think that will be really really interesting. But that will be a different exercise, I think, because in the exercise of the practice, no matter how many people are, I think the time and the space, I think is very, I think both sharing that space, the people who are in space sharing the space, and the instability and the latency and all the problems of the, I think it's something that is it makes the space, it shares the uncertainty of the moment.
I have two options. Um, well, one thing is like I don't know if it has to be symmetric. I mean, or the question is like, does it have to be the practice? Like maybe,
That's what I was saying. Like
yeah,
that, I think like we can be super super interesting, but it's just, I guess, because we come together like once. I mean, we have been talking the last weeks a lot, like a lot of chats. We have produced a lot of chats. So this is more, I guess, this is in my head, kind of like me putting a lot of screws in my head. Is like I'm very into like defining what is a practice. So what I think is a practice, this is in a way that then I don't understand this as a practice.
right.
uh,
So maybe
but then
like in the next, well, as a next project or whatever, like I'm not trying to overwhelm you, but maybe it's something not practice that we can propose to do something
that
together.
would be super interesting, because also that goes more in the idea of like archiving. I mean, like I think in just like when you were saying that, I felt like in dance, one of the ways of composing in dance is like you limit your space, let's say, and you limit you limit the things. Like dancers and choreographers, as we spoke some time ago in the chats, like they're afraid basically of movement, in a way. That's the fear of the dance, of the choreographer, is the movement itself. So that's why you're trying to tame it as much as you can, uh, because then you can be free through understanding what are those motions, what is the motion that you want to use. So I think then working through archiving, um, that it will be certainly something very, uh, I don't know if more interesting, but it will be more in a way structured. It's something that it will demand more, a different exercise, cognitive exercise, for me at least. I can say I can try to use strategies to how to tackle the thing, the every time, if I know, then this week will be now to giving something, and then it's you and me, or the other way around, and certainly then I will tackle the exercise with different strategies.
I have another option. Well, it's not really option, but I just wanted to say that today I was using some recordings from like other sessions. One is from another practice that I was playing the video with the cursor and text, the code. And also, when I was outside at the beginning, I recorded part of the live coding, and I was like just repeating, like replaying again and again and again. So I don't have to code, but as if someone's coding, it's just happening. And the other one is from yesterday. I had a session with Flor de Fuego, and I made like a recording of the code. So I was actually using that live coding like happening as a replay, and I was using that texture in the background or on myself to work with it. So that was actually already happening.
Yeah, I think there's so many ways to hybridize those different temporalities and yeah, provide some hooks and ways to hook into that kind of material. Yeah, so I think that so basically to wrap up with the question, I would basically say that there's probably a way to combine the liveness and the momentum with maybe other materials or other ways of thinking how to pass it on. Yeah, I was. There's also something that I wanted to ask you. So when you started doing the best practices, um, did you think of an audience? Because first you're doing it live, right? So you could just record it and not share it, right? So you do put it out there. What is there anything you expect, or is it just the fact that you're both performers that makes it natural to do that? Or I'm just curious to hear a little bit about that.
I don't remember. I don't remember why.
To know what happened, let me try to remember. I think we didn't have yeah, but this is part of like in a way I think the format works because in a way we don't have a purpose. Like it's something that it doesn't have a purpose more than just expressing the expression. So I guess we just started like it was not live streaming, it was just recordings, and then we put them out. I don't think it was, yeah, we always put them out since 1 year ago. So the streams certainly changed a lot of the. It's weird because we always put them out. I don't think there has been one that we'd say like, oh my god, we just cannot put these out. So we always just put them out, and so that's to say that the live streaming is not adding anything to more than just changing. I mean, having the privacy, the little privacy, when you decide to upload it is gone. Like there is no control of that. But we never used that. Yeah. So and I think the people who watch, I don't think we never have really spoke about like for who are we doing this. I think how we spoke about this,
Like the audience.
the audience. Yeah.
I think that's something we started to talk about. Like where, like how kind of more like how to advertise, how to promote the work. That's certainly about the audience, but it's not like more like audience in terms of like curators and stuff. No, that sounds wrong.
But I think also there's something in the title, the best practices, that, usually when you claim something as best, you usually just, there's usually a projection, right? So I think it's already in the title, in the provocation that you're making. And I think there's something to do with the fact that there's something quite interesting with the easiness within which we do things online. On one hand, we are maybe exposed to, millions of people. On the other, or bots, or whatever sort of agents are there in the World Wide Web. But on one hand we're hyper exposed. On the other hand, it just so much of everything. It's like a sea of data, right? We are like just one more drop in the ocean. So there's also something there that eases everything down. Maybe no one will even watch it, right? And if they do, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we're lucky. And so
Or
maybe
maybe they
there's
are
also
they
this,
are unlucky that they watched it.
yeah, one way or another. So yeah, I wonder if the reason why it felt like it came so natural to upload things is also the fact that it's, I don't know, it's just you don't even know if it will ever, or how, who it will reach to start with.
Yeah, I think there was no like strong um, intention. Like we didn't really discuss, but we just said, if there's something wrong, we can take it down, but otherwise we just put it. And I'm fine with it. Like I'm fine with putting like work in progress or sketches online. So that was easy. But yeah, if
I
I,
also
yeah,
I also think there was like something that I think was clear in the beginning is like we wanted to have a massive archive. I think that's something that we thought like if we want to do if we start a process, I guess we said like just let's have an archive, like a massive archive of these. So in a way, I think that's the only thing that I can think back then that we thought is like, just because we were anyway doing it before recording it,
or like a TV
before sharing
program.
that. Kind of like some we talk about these ideas, right? Maybe you can say a bit of this because we talk about this, the TV.
Yeah, we just like had an idea of like meeting every like same day of the week and same time, so it becomes like a TV show that we will be there for 1 hour, and then that's it. Like that, I think it was really clear from Jorge that we will like whatever the result is, we'll like cut everything at like after 1 hour. So it's like a TV show, but we didn't really start it with live streaming because yeah, just to have less stress. But so instead, we just put it online afterwards. So maybe that was like a compromise at first.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think so. I also thought I want to say something in respect to that. That was I think just the idea of for like the way this is personal, the way how I think actually how I see a spectator nowadays is I expect somebody who jump through the streaming. So in purpose, then we propose something that is like 7 hours long. That's something that we discussed with Naoto, and we talked this, and I guess from January when we start proposing this format, it was long. First, it was just something that it came like this because the streaming has to be long in order to just have one URL, let's say. But then also part of the things that we talk is in the idea of this active audience, that it means that through that if somebody comes it needs to have some active presence, in the sense of trying to find through the glitches and through the things that we do things that resonate, like in a way I think similar to the process when you mentioned about the fonts, and then the way how you will zoom in and do this kind of process that is not literally trying to say to you this, but it's just and your words use this essentiality of the element to for the person to do their own work with his own representation identities and so on. But then I imagine somebody going, I guess, as you did today, partly like, I just gonna jump here. I stay here 10 seconds. Oh, by surprise, now Naoto is talking about this. I will stay here longer, and then just here, and that's the way how I imagine a spectator like going through 7 hours. Like, yeah,
Do you ever see yourselves going back to the archive and having to do something with it?
we do. We use it sometimes. We use
You,
it
you bring it back.
we use it like we use it so you make this archive live. That's part of like that's the way how I think we spoke of these things. I think that we said that we're trying to make the archive live in a way. So then we use sometimes, and we try many times in the conversation before they start doing the few times we try to start. We said in the development, let's use the archive, and we said, and we tried to do it, and then I guess we end up doing it, but not in the way how we'll try. Let's say as a research, like really, let's try to go through the archives, and it happens naturally in PAF. When I was in France, sometimes that we were putting in the back. Sometimes there are some archives.
Yeah, from the past recordings, and also like from the chat. Like this round, we play it again because it's more interesting. Because not more interesting, but it has another aspect because we are always talking, so we can catch words all the time.
Yeah.
And also like that reminded me of one of the first ideas I had when we talked about this TV show style that we do it every week. I was thinking like just record it in advance, like for 1 hour, and just play it back as if I'm live. So we don't know actually if we are like each other is like live or not, which probably doesn't make sense because if you talk to them and if they don't reply, then probably it's like recording or something wrong. But if you're like really into the flow, then sometimes you don't notice that if it's like a recording or not actually. Sometimes that happened to me.
It makes me think of a performance. I forgot the reference, but it's. I haven't watched it, but I was told about this performance where you see someone on stage talking to you, and then this person leaves the stage, and you carry on listening to the voice, but then it goes from live to recording, and then you see the person suddenly in the audience, and speaking over the recording, and there's it's interesting. I think it's so much more about what your expectations about the medium and the format are, and how that tricks you at times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The way, I mean, because this is something that we are doing this partly also like this is we talk of these things that it has to be a lot with the time and the space. So that's why, like for me, the live aspect has to be a lot because it just is it just put the vulnerability on top, and because it's true, there's so many times that are just glitching happening. The glitches happen like between, if there is latency or if there's a voice, there is a lot of feedbacks in the voice. It's very funny how for times happens, and then we hear something. Let's say that because we are busy doing different things, that we are not paying attention to what the other one is doing. And then say I heard Naoto's voice, and then I will try to answer, but it's just actually just some recording, or maybe just his latency. He's using something, and so in a way it's very much in line with what you're saying with that performance. And
Well,
then some
I don't know. But it's our intention is not to trick people or not to play with that, but it's more
but,
random.
but sometimes, like, I mean, that's like sometimes I try to trick you,
Ah, okay,
but,
then
but sometimes like I will say it's not that, and I will say this, yeah, it happens. Yeah, I think like as different things in the practice, like representation, politics, and other ones, sometimes then I will just try to then trick you, uh, and then I'm so naughty, and then I will and then I just leave it, and then I just go back, and like there are just different things that are just passing by in the practice.
And um, so you say that you've been doing this for 1 year.
yeah, like this format is like started like last July, I think, but we started like meeting
Okay.
in last April. Yeah.
Okay. And do you have any future plans, or it's all as open as it started?
If I speak by myself, but for myself, then from based on what we speak very often in chat, then by the way, if people are following the chat, they can go back in the chat and see.
Oh, he's lost. So maybe I can say.
Oh yeah, connection
Um,
lost.
yeah, but it's okay. Like this
Uh,
is part of it. Oh, I missed the timing to say it. You can continue.
yeah, this is we're trying to do like to making the process more visible, because we believe that there is already a process that is valid in a way. through digital and dance. So we think this is an option that is in a way is clear enough through the confusion, if I dare to say it. So then someone can go through. So therefore, I think we have been trying to speak like how then we gain some visibility. How can we extend this without losing then the core
The
thing
pure
that we.
pureness, purity of the
Mm,
practice. I think it's really hard because this is something we all like often talk about these days, that we want to have kind of exposure, not well, okay, I say I want to be famous, so I try to promote my work, but also it's not like if that becomes the objective, then that's not what we want. So, and I think also like kind of interesting word I said interesting word like a few months ago, that sometimes like when I make images I want to make it like Instagrammable in a way, that so I can
yeah,
take a
you're
screenshot later and put it on Instagram, and that becomes like like a kind of pressure that at one point in the practice you have to make something nice, and that's not something we are aiming for. And I think that's the same for like grant writing, or working with institutions, that then if you're not like serving for them, but if this becomes some kind of burden for us, then that's probably not good. So we have to kind of balance these two aspects, so the purity of the practice and the visibility or whatever we can get from people.
Yeah, but I think like we haven't spoken of like I think we speak like in the future then we see it like spaces to go more in depth in like the archive is one. That's something that definitely like that would be so interesting to work with you, as you know. Then like this is one like to understand what does the archive mean during in the process, and the other one is to in a way then because this idea that in their understanding the archiving as in a way is performative still is an active archive in a way. So but then the other one is as well then writing which is basically or making sense of it rationally through language based. So then that's what we do through to the chat basically. And then in the last I will say the last 2 weeks we met maybe 2 times 3 times per week. We spend more than 1 hour. I think the last sometimes we met 3 times per week more than 1 hour to just talk and talk and talk, trying to make to I guess build concept, to shorten the paths, to name this a blob. To use words to yeah just to create concept and try to go farther in in the concept I guess.
You have to make a dictionary.
I have to make a dictionary, but we started working with hashtags, right? In the chat page that you made we started working with hashtags. What would you think is a hashtag will how would you can you use that one word like how would you define your experience with us in this chat today?
In a hashtag.
Oh wow!
Hashtag, yeah.
I have to hashtag it. Um.
What a
Okay.
burden! Like,
At least I know it's hard. At least at least a hashtag can be long, which is nice. You can almost write a sentence out of it, so that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. That's on my side. Um.
you don't have to answer it. I'll believe you.
No,
Everything, by the way,
no,
is
no. But
like now you have 3 seconds. You have to be smart.
it's a good. No, no. I don't think I'm gonna say anything too impressive, but I do think that it's been. I think it's been great the discussions we've been having. Especially when it comes to presence and what it means to share that presence. Um, and I think the struggle between having some having to follow some protocols, whether we want or not, like I can only be here, otherwise I disappear, like so that we are constrained by all these things. And but at the same time, and we know that there's all these best practices for being in the camera, being in the frame, etc., etc. And I think it's been quite interesting have to rethink how to liberate oneself from it, but also oftentimes just having to acknowledge the constraints and the conditions. So it feels like almost an endless situation. And there seems to be always some unknown factors that keeps us going. And it's probably because of the situatedness of the practices as well, that they happen here and now, and they're very much in real time. So I totally failed on the hashtag.
That was a long hashtag. That's what I would say.
Okay, but I
But
didn't
I
manage
like
to
that. I was
respond.
I kind of like that. Totally fail. I kind of like that hashtag. Hashtag totally fail.
Yeah.
I like
Hashtag
it.
best
Hashtag
practices.
totally fail.
Hashtag totally failed.
I like that. That's very nice. That's on point. Yeah.
So we have it. We have it.
A point. A point.
I mean, that's one of the keywords, fail, in the
Bellissimo.
practice.
Yeah. Awesome.
So I think we can
Uh,
finish here, no?
Yeah,
It's
I
around
can.
time.
Yeah, so thank you for coming. I'm just gonna switch off the live streaming, but thank you. And
okay.
yeah, if you're watching, there are two viewers. I don't know if it's actually two of you, maybe, but thank you for watching. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Okay, thank you so much.